Osvaldo Alonso. It was Matt Doyle did a great, I think, article.
Great article.
Yeah, it wasn't even really kind of, it was one of his video articles.
Video.
Yeah. And really kind of mapped out where Alonso would fit into the U.S. national team framework if, in fact, he came and played for the U.S. and if FIFA allowed him to do that, which I think they should, and I think there's a good argument that they could make that for various reasons that he should be able to switch again and play for the United States. So we'll see what that happens.
But switch for the first time, but still.
Well, yeah, okay, we'll switch for the first time, but in essence, it would be, overturning some of the rules already because he's already played in qualifiers for Cuba. Is that correct?
Yeah.
Yes.
Olympics.
Okay.
He played for the Olympics for Cuba.
Right.
And the one thing I really liked what Matt said was what you get when you bring in a player like Alonso is you get the chance to move Bradley up, and you get basically you're allowing him to have more of an offensive take in the game rather than playing so defensive. And he brought up the point under Klinsmann when Bradley has to play sitting back, and he does a fine job at that number 6 position. The problem is when you do that, you completely take away his offensive tendencies, his offensive abilities.
Absolutely.
And it weakens the team. He tried to bring it in with Beckerman. That would have allowed Bradley to push up, and that's in all honesty, I would rather. I mean, all credit to Beckerman. He had some good games with the U.S., but I would love to see what Alonso could do. He's a great number 6, a great defensive midfielder, and like I said before, that would open up him and Jones for that matter.
Right, because it's a triangle. That's what we've been playing.
We saw how that would work out when Klinsmann played Edu back there.
Right. So
and for whatever reason, when we played other teams, we started seeing Bradley back there and Edu playing up higher or some other form of change. And in all honesty, I think that's a great way to play, to have that true number 6 sitting back there, destroying the opponent's attack and looking for that distribution to Jones or Bradley, who will then distribute to the more advanced players or even push the ball up themselves.
Right. And that really comes down to, for me, because I don't want Bradley to be playing the back of that triangle. I just don't want it. I want him to push forward with Jones, and they can take turns, but between being the possessor and the attacker, but they can't do that if you push Bradley in the back of that triangle and then move Edu up. And which
to clarify, you're not saying you don't want him back there because he's a poor number 6. You're just saying you want him in the attack.
I want Bradley in the attack, not because he can't play that spot.
Yes.
He's fine in that spot, but it's a waste of talent, and it's a waste of ability, and it's a waste of a guy with a rocket of a foot when given the chance.
If we had somebody who could somebody who can take a spot further up the field in that same position, that's fine. But the fact is who are we putting in his place?
Yeah. I'm sorry, you can never, I don't care who we're playing, I never want to see Bradley play that position again. I want Edu back there, and the real debate becomes, if Alonso's on the team, I think it's Beckerman who hits the road, frankly.
Oh, I agree.
And Alonso becomes the backup behind Edu. And I think that's...
Contending with. Even contending.
And could quite possibly contend.
I don't know what Alonso would do as far as the international is concerned, but his time in MLS, I've always said he's been one of the more underrated players in MLS. I mean, now he's getting a lot more attention, obviously, over the past couple of years.
Yep.
But I mean, he'd be a player I'd love to see at the international stage with a quality team.
I think he's a better passer than Edu. I don't.
He just does a great job of destroying and tackling and everything.
Yeah.
I would love to see what he can do, really.
I would too. And I think, as you said, I think he could compete for that spot against Maurice Edu, but I never want to see Michael Bradley playing the back of the triangle again. I wanted to see him moving forward or being the possession person out of that triangle and have Jones advance up the field, or vice versa between Jones and Bradley. But I don't ever want to see him play that spot again. I don't care who we're playing. So it was a great article by Doyle, and I guess it really comes down to, at this point, FIFA, and we'll see what happens. Then we get to the U.S. Open Cup, because, as things were developing there, all the noise was you had all these lower division teams beating
really
all
low.
these... Yeah.
PDL low.
Yeah, beating MLS teams, and the MLS kind of most of the teams in the MLS not really, I think, giving the full effort in the U.S. Open.
Just a shame.
Yep. But then, Brett, when it all comes down to the last 4 teams, here we are with Philly versus Kansas City, Chivas versus Seattle. Mm-hmm. And it really, all the Dayton Dutches and the Charlotte Eagles and the Harrisburgs, they're gone. They're gone. And really, it does show in the end, does it, I guess is the question, does it show in the end that MLS is absolutely superior? And I think it does, because I don't think most of the MLS teams take this thing even halfway as serious as the lower division teams do.
That's the thing. I mean, the lower teams look at this as their time to shine, whereas, especially in the earlier stages, most MLS teams look at this as able to give their depth some time on the field, because our reserve league is not quite up to where we wanted to see. They play 10 games a year. They need to play more, so this is their chance to shine. And sometimes, as we saw with Columbus, as we saw with Chicago and some various other teams, they get burned for doing so. But in the end, it's clear that the MLS holds the higher quality players when it comes to starting 11 versus starting 11. In my opinion, no ifs, ands, or buts. And in all honesty, I would love to see a final of KC and Seattle. I'd like to see both of them lose the final, but I know that can't happen. And either team would be good for the Champions League spot.
Yeah.
So,
yeah. No,
that's a big thing. I don't know if I'd really want to see Philly. I'm sorry, our friends in Philly, but I don't know if I'd want to see Philly in the Champions League next season.
Right.
And as far as that's concerned, I don't know if I really want to see Chivas USA in there either.
Yeah. I mean, those are two teams that, in many ways, are still building. And they are young, That's, I guess, the good news, especially if you're Philly. Yeah, you might be able to survive that. But I like what Kansas City is developing there.
Yes.
I think they're a better representative. Seattle, they've been repping us already, I think, fairly well. Although we'd like to see them kind of crack into the final.
Further.
Yep,
yeah,
I really would. All right, U.S. Open. Who do you have? I mean, I've got Kansas City winning this thing.
I have Kansas City versus Seattle, and at that point, it's really who shows up and where they play. If they play at Seattle again, then most likely Seattle. But I would like to say Sporting will come away with it.
Yeah, kind of weird calling them Sporting still.
I know. Did you hear me say Sporting? Although I'm sure they'll go by Kansas City regardless, as long as you don't add the Wiz or the Wizard to the end of it.
The Wiz. No, speaking of American...
What are they thinking, man?
I really don't know. That was just horrible. Speaking of American patriotism, did you see the Yahoo News article today that said 70% of Americans still support the Declaration of Independence? That's up from 66% when they did it before.
They're in support?
70% of Americans still support the Declaration of Independence. What the hell are the other 30% smoking? I don't know.
Maybe that's the thing, they are smoking.
Yeah, I guess. They don't like voting for their own elected officials. Do they'd rather be ruled by the English? I'm not sure. And that really, gets back to a real issue we have in this country. We really need to get back to. I would guess the 30% who said they're not sure if they support it or they don't support it don't even know what the Declaration of Independence is. That would be my guess. So they're like, oh,
it could just be a series of college kids.
College?
Saying, I'm gonna have a laugh on this one.
No.
Say, nope, don't agree with it.
Boy, I wish it were a joke, Brett. I really do.
No, I'm sure there are some people out there that claim that don't like the way things are being run and simply say, "Oh, I'm not in agreement with this and that."
Not in agreement with the Declaration of Independence.
Yeah.
So you don't like democracy, is what you're saying?
Not at all.
All right. So I guess 30% of this country is either fascist or pro. They're loyalist Brits. Okay. All right. So we'll move on from there. The other thing that we should talk about briefly, because things have changed in the last number of weeks we've been gone, is the MLS standings. And I don't know if the beginning of the season you would have told me that Real Salt Lake was going to lose 3 games in a row and drop out of first in the Western Conference, that I would have believed you. So something's going wrong there. But at the same time, something's going very right in San Jose. And they're at the top of the table. They won 4 out of 5. They're in a hot streak, and I really don't see this ending anytime real soon.
They've got a true blue-collar work team doing very well for them. You had mentioned Seattle, not Seattle, but Real Salt Lake. I mean, you look at, Chicago's on a 3-game win streak. DC has 4 wins in the last 5 games. The only loss being to New York, who's in second place in the East.
Yeah, Olsen's really doing something right there. There's no doubt about it.
He got the All-Star vote.
Yeah.
Yeah, managing the All-Star team. So we'll see him there.
Sorry, Peter Novak.
Hopefully he can do better than last year.
Because, Peter was supposed to coach that team this time around, right?
You can't bring in an MLS coach, or you can't bring in an all-star coach. It's not an MLS coach.
Right. Should I friend him, by the way? He popped up on my recommended. I wonder if he would accept my friend request on Facebook.
No, you're just another ant.
Yeah, that's true.
Class.
Little flea. He'll just itch me off. Or he'll yell at me. Either one of the two. So, yeah, I mean, I think the thing that's really kind of, if you're an LA Galaxy fan, they were on a roll there for a while, so now it's kind of depressing because they just lost to San Jose.
And a comeback loss, too.
Yeah, and they had that game won.
2-1, ended up losing 3-2. Or no, my bad. They were up like 2-1, and ended up losing like 4-3.
It was 4-3, and then Beckham went berserk at the end of the game.
Oh, either way, I know that they were up, and they ended up losing the match.
Yeah. Well, I'm not sure what went down there on the field, but Beckham just wanted to rip somebody's head off and got a yellow card there at the end for kicking the ball at the ref and the player that was down, and I don't know what the hell's going on there, and nobody would talk about it. So that's a question I'd love. If I'm a journalist, at the end of that game, I'm going to Donovan saying, Donovan, Landon, because they asked him all the other questions, why was Beckham so pissed off? I want to know why he was pissed.
Well, you're not going to get a true answer to that. He'd probably just say, he was upset that he lost the match. Or,
no.
We were up and we ended up losing it.
He was going after the San Jose goalkeeper as if, he'd said something about his mom.
After Bingham? Really?
Yeah, as if that's what it looked like to me because he kept circling back towards the goalkeeper every time his teammates said, hey, don't beat his ass or whatever and try to block him off. That's what he looked like to me where he was headed. And so I don't know what Bingham said, something about his wife.
Could have been something about the Olympics, who knows?
Could be. Oh, that would have been hardcore.